Hey guys, I'm Eric.
And I'm Nikki.
And today we're going to be talking about 3 tips for working with your spouse in business and in life.
We think this is super important because 1, you have to hang out with your spouse a lot if you want to have a good marriage. But 2, a lot of people aspire to, stop working their 9 to 5 and kind of start a family gig, if you will, and, do, entrepreneurial things.
And everybody that we've talked to that is in the flipping space like we are or doing new construction, their spouse is either working with them most of the time or they have a very big hand in the business.
Right.
So whereas Nikki and I, we work 24/7 with each other. So I run all of the construction and finding the deals, and Nikki runs all of the design work and doing the listing and staging. So we are literally together all the time.
You're a very lucky fella. So I wanted to give mine first. This is my tip. He has a tip, I have a tip, and we're gonna tell you about it. Mine is don't take it personal. I have a tendency to take things very personally, and he is not the most eloquent with his words. And sometimes he'll say something and I take it the complete wrong way.
We call it a no filter. I don't have a filter.
He has no filter. But I can take things very wrong and I take it very personal. And it's hard when you work together and you're together all the time to not let it roll over into family time and roll over into dinner time and bedtime. And so that's something I still work on, but I have to remind myself not to take what you say or how you act personally.
And when we're in the business hours, we try and stick between, about 8 and 4. When we're in business hours, I'm the head and Nikki listens to what I say because I'm the owner of the business with Nikki as well, but I'm the one giving the shots. So it's hard for her to really make sure that I'm not going to her personally when it's a business matter. And then when we get home, most of the time she's the shot caller. So so that's why we have that transition. But it's really, really key to make sure that you're not taking things personally when it is a business matter. You cannot grow and operate that way if you continue to take things personally in business matters. But you also have to make sure that when it is a home time, you do have that separation and you know that now it's okay to start talking personal and things like that. So you have to have a good separation.
And that's when you're allowed to take it personally.
Absolutely. All right, guys, mine is number 2. And I think my biggest one is communication. And I don't think a lot of people say communication like you want to have a good relationship, of course. But what I'm talking about is over communication. Like, hey, I'm doing this. This is what it's going to be. This is when I'm going to be there. And this is when I'm going to be home. It's not so much of letting the other person knowing what you're doing. It's making sure they understand why you're doing it and how you're doing it. And is there in a way that they could, help? I think a lot of the times that's Nikki and I's one of our biggest frustrations, that we don't communicate with each other as well as we should.
Well, I have an example. Like yesterday, I just knew I needed to set up a showing, and I set it up for people to go to the showing to meet Eric. And Eric's thought of why I was setting this appointment was for him to go talk to a tenant. So I just assumed he knew what I was talking about, and you assumed I was doing what you wanted me to do. But that wasn't the case.
But that is the key. That is the biggest key, is making sure that you over communicate what you're doing. So Nikki, I need a showing for X, Y, and Z, and making sure I've been doing a lot too, where we repeat back. All right, tell me what I just said we needed. And I know that sounds silly, but as we continue to do it and as we continue to work together, it's really allowed us to have not very many fights on what we're doing and making sure that we're very clear, especially when hundreds and thousands of dollars are on the line with how we communicate with each other.
Yeah. I think one that could go past anything just working together, but just in marriage in general, would be love languages too. I know your love language and you know my love language, and
we'll give a link for the book, The 5 Love Languages, for
Gary Chapman.
Gary Chapman. Yep. Super phenomenal book. Not only with your spouse, but your employees. You should know your employees' love language. You got to know your spouse's love language.
Your kids.
Your kids, absolutely. Extremely important to know how to communicate with somebody through how they feel loved and how they are valued, how they feel valued.
And you say love, you feel like, oh, the butterflies and stuff. No, like just love also means appreciated, respected, understood. I think that's like an all-encompassing term, love. But yeah, it's super important to know that. Yours is physical touch. So I know, like, if he's had a super stressful day like yesterday, I feel like it was just bad news after bad news after bad news. And he was like, I just need a hug. So I gave him a hug, and it didn't solve anything, but it made him feel better.
Absolutely.
Do you know my love language?
Words of affirmation.
There we go. Okay.
And it just so happens I'm also a very ruthless person when I fight. So it's very, very, very difficult to make sure that we are.
Yes, because words hurt me, and he has a way of using his words. So it's important for him to know, okay, I can say this, and it's really going to affect her because words are important to her.
And also during work hours, it's making sure that you understand that during work hours, she is an employee of the Hensley Group, and that I remember she's still my wife afterwards. So making sure that you're having that specific communication, that I'm not only talking to her as an employee, but also respecting enough to talk to her as my wife as well. So that later on, we don't have those personal issues like we talked about in number 1.
And that we've had before.
Correct.
And we're saying all this coming from having had all the issues that were involved with having no filters and not caring what the other person's love language was and not caring about communication. Like, we're coming at you having been there, done all that.
We have been married for 10 years, so this is not something where we haven't been through our own struggles. We've definitely been at each other's throats for years before, and coming through what we have, this is how we have the authority to be able to give you some of this advice. But that is definitely our top 3. So number 1 is personal, don't take things personal. Number 2, communicate well with your spouse in business and outside. And number 3, learn your love language.
And that's a wrap. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. We hope that you found value in it. And if you are considering working with your spouse, do it. It's definitely going to try your relationship in all the ways possible, but we have found that it is definitely worth it.
And we are better together.